What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Chaos Talks. I wasn't originally going to make a video about this, but the ending of this game pissed me off so much that I just had to. For those who don't know, I'm going to be talking about the ending of A Plague Tale Requiem. So obviously, spoilers inbound, but this game has probably one of the worst endings I think I've experienced aside from The Last of Us Part 2. And maybe that's going a little bit too far. Maybe that's exaggerating. I don't know, but I really did not like this at all. I mean, I guess aside from The Last of Us Part Two, this game at least is enjoyable to an extent. It's a decent game. Like aside from the ending, I'll just go ahead and say this: A Plague Tale Requiem. It's a fairly decent sequel to Innocence in that it's visually a better looking game. Despite the performance issues and the poor optimization that the game has, I really hope they do patch that. But I've already beaten the game, so at this point, I honestly don't really care too much. But just be warned, people who are playing this on PC or who want to play this on PC, this game runs like ass across the board, and it's pretty much just made to sell 4090 cards because that's the only card that can actually run this game properly for some reason. The game does run fine for the most part if you turn on this resolution optimizer that they've added into the game with the most recent patch. However, if regardless of if you have that on or not, or whatever setting you seem to have it on, every time you get into a heavily populated area or there's just a bunch of rats on screen, your frame rate will absolutely tank. It does not matter what setup you're running. It doesn't matter what your settings are. The frame rate is just in the toilet in certain segments of the game. And that's really unfortunate because the game otherwise is actually okay. The gameplay, I would say it does everything a sequel should do. It's a bigger game in a lot of ways. It's a more ambitious game. However, the writing, unfortunately, kind of takes a little bit of a nosedive. There are some things people have said are somewhat retcon from the first game. It's been a while since I've played Innocence, which is the first game, so I don't remember certain aspects of it, but it does supposedly retcon a few things, and the writing just is not as good as Innocence, according to some people. I thought it was okay, but I can see what people mean. Characters like Amicia and Hugo, or some of the other characters, sometimes are acting kind of just out of character in comparison to how they were portrayed in Innocence. And I really feel like there should have been more character development with characters like Hugo and Amicia, and it really does not feel like that was there. It just feels like Amicia was, in the latter half of the game specifically, is just a killing machine pretty much. And in the first game, it feels like she's not really supposed to be like that. She's doing things because she has to do them, and it does feel that way in the beginning of this game, but in the latter half, it just gets harder and harder to really justify Amicia just basically snapping at certain points and becoming really bloodthirsty, and for no real reason. There are some good reasons for it at certain points near the end of the game, like revenge, but and it just being a spur of the moment thing where she's just blinded by her rage. But at other points, it's just harder to really justify what she does and how she seems to really just want to kill people. It's just something she was forced into in the first game, and at certain points in this game as well, but at other points it feels like it was avoidable. So there are things like that where I just feel like Amicia is a little bit out of character, and I just don't know. But aside from that, I do like a lot of the new characters. There are quite a few things here that I do like, but the ending just completely ruins it for me. So it is different from games like The Last of Us Part 2 in that sense, where it's not going out to kind of deconstruct the first game or to basically just be a slap in the face to anybody that liked certain characters from the first game. It's nothing really like, well, for the most part, it's not really like that. But let me just go ahead and spoil the ending of this game. As those who've played the game know or may not know, if you haven't played it or you're watching this video and you haven't played the game and you just don't care, I'll just give you the gist of A Plague Tale. Basically, the main character Amicia and her brother Hugo this takes place in I think it was the 1300s in France, and it's kind of like an alternate history version of the Black Plague, where there's a lot of supernatural elements added into it because Amicia's brother Hugo has a this supernatural connection to all the rats, and he's like, there's this thing that he's connected to called the macula that is like using Hugo to control the rats. So it's kind of like he's indirectly responsible for anybody that end up dying because of the rats, because he's anywhere he goes, the rats kind of like follow him. So whatever, if they ever try to go to like a city, the rats are going to follow him and just kill anybody in that area. And then of course, like later on, you learn that Hugo does have some control over the rats and can potentially even use them as a weapon if he really wants to. But this is something that obviously is not good because, Hugo is essentially just a bomb. It's like a ticking time bomb in a way. And Amicia is really trying to go out of her way to find any kind of a cure for Hugo that could potentially save him, because he's pretty much, this is something he does not want. And Amicia, of course, being her, her sister, or being his sister, does not want this for him either. So the whole game, in Innocence, basically, you discover he has this, and you're trying to find a way to save him. And that's pretty much also the plot of Requiem. It picks up where Innocence left off, and you're basically still trying to find this cure. And things just get more and more desperate as the game goes on. And you learn more about Hugo's affliction and the history behind it, that there are other people in the past that also had the same affliction and this connection to the macula. But at no point in the game does it ever really provide some kind of alternative, aside from just, well, Hugo has to die, or in order for this to end. And that is unfortunately the conclusion that the game comes to, because this whole game, you're trying to look for a cure for Hugo, and like I said, at no point in Requiem are you really presented with any other alternative but Hugo has to die. And throughout this game, Amicia is maintaining her optimism that, okay, we can go somewhere else where Hugo will be safe, where we'll be able to find some kind of a cure for him, or, he'll be able to live in peace. And it just feels like it really is just blind optimism, because as the player, like, you really want to believe, yeah, there is another way. There is some other way to save him. And really, like, this ending, I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it. You end up killing Hugo. There is no other way to save him. You have to kill him. You are forced into killing him. And it really annoys me, because it just makes everything that came before this feel completely pointless. What was the point of trying to find a cure for Hugo? What was the point of going on this journey of trying to save your brother if the conclusion is you cannot save him? As soon as you found out in the first game that he's connected to the macula, and of course there are a lot of things I don't remember about Innocence, so I could be wrong about certain things, so people can correct me in the comments if they want to, but as soon as you find out that he can do this in the first game, why wouldn't you just kill him? And then everything would end, and countless people wouldn't have had to die either indirectly or directly because of Hugo. So what was the point of it all? Endings like this really are the worst. Endings that make everything feel pointless, where everything that came before it could have easily been prevented and there was no other solution this whole time. That's pretty much what this ending is, because basically the ending of Requiem, you confront Hugo. Hugo basically completely gives into the macula and becomes one with the macula, because he feels like everything is pointless. Everybody has died. He loses hope completely, and he just completely gives into it. And you're given no other choice but to kill him. You basically, because you have a rock and a sling in this game as one of your weapons, you pretty much are forced to just sling a rock at his head, and that's the end of the game. Of course, there's a post-credits scene, but it's just so frustrating. The post-credit scene, all it is just Amicia going to Hugo's grave. And then to add insult to injury, there's even a scene after this where you see a baby that's also afflicted with the macula, or also has the same affliction as Hugo. So basically, this is just a continuous cycle. It's not going to end. So it makes everything feel that much more pointless. The fact that you kill Hugo at the end of the game did absolutely nothing, because the cycle will continue. And I really feel like all that was just sequel bait, for the most part, but it really makes it feel like you didn't accomplish anything, because it's just going to keep going. And it's just incredibly, like, it's just a cop-out. It's just a cop-out ending. because it feels like that Asobo Studios could not come up with anything that made any sense, or they just said, okay, well, we're just going to go with the lazy ending where you just have to kill your brother. Like, really, it just feels like a massive waste of time. And I really want to recommend these games to people because aside from this terrible ending, the games are actually okay. They're actually good adventure games. It's just that this ending completely ruins everything that came before it. Like, that's how bad this is. It almost feels like Asobo Studios was taking notes from Hajime Isayama, the creator of Attack on Titan, because that ending is pretty similar to this one, where everything felt pretty pointless. But even that ending was a little bit better because at least something was accomplished. I mean, I guess you could say something was accomplished here too, but regardless, that ending kind of has the same premise where, yeah, everything feels kind of pointless, and then even after that ending, it's shown to be pointless because the piece that we thought was attained at the ending really wasn't a lasting piece because the island of Paradis gets carpet bombed. And it's kind of a similar thing here where the macula is still around and it is basically found another carrier is what they're calling it of the macula. So it's not going to end. It's going to keep going. So what was the point of all this is what the player has to ask by the end of this game. Why did I go through all this trouble just for things to pretty much go back to square one? It's like none of this ever really happened. So I don't know, man. Like this was just kind of shocking to me that they went this direction, that this is the route they went with the ending. And it's like you really couldn't come up with anything better. I mean, I could think of something better just off the top of my head. Okay, for example, maybe like there is some way for the macula to be transferred over to another person. It gets transferred over to Amicia because she's willing to sacrifice pretty much anything for her brother. What if there was some way for Hugo to transfer it over to her and now she has it and she has to like live her life in isolation, and there's like the third game is basically we play as an adult Hugo or like a teenage Hugo who's trying to save Amicia this time as opposed to Amicia doing everything she can to save Hugo. What if the roles are kind of reversed in a way? That would be interesting, but of course that's not the direction they go. So it's just lazy, like I said. It's a complete and total cop-out ending, and I don't know. I just cannot, in full confidence, really like recommend this game. Maybe play Innocence, but if you play Innocence, you're naturally just going to want to play the sequel. So I just don't know. I mean, Innocence was a better game, but of course, you're going to want to know what happens, so you're going to play Requiem, and Requiem does at least satisfy some of your questions as to what happens with some of these characters, but the ending it's just so bad. So I just don't know. But I don't know, guys. Let me know what you thought of this ending if you've played this game, or if you haven't played this game and you just don't care and you don't care about spoilers. Let me know what you thought about what I just described to you. Like I said, I just had to make this video because I'm just so pissed after having gone through all that. And this is like, I think it really is a longer game than Innocence as well. And it's just because it's so long, it feels like even more of a waste of time that this is the outcome. I mean, at least give us a choice. We're not even given a choice. We're forced to do this, and that makes it feel even more insulting that there's not even a choice. Like, this feels like the bad ending of one of those games where you actually have a choice of what to do. Like, this is the ending that nobody pretty much wants to get. Like, it really feels like that. So I don't know, guys. This game was really just really disappointing. I felt like, aside from the poor optimization of the game, the ending just really brings the game down for me in terms of whatever score I would give it if I were to review the game or something like that. It's just disappointing, and I just don't know if I can really recommend it, like I said. But again, let me know what you guys think, and until next time, I will see you all later.